welcome to Devnexus. This is Influence DevOps Without Authority. How can even a DevOps engineer can help advance real DevOps? We'll start with the story. And the story begins with Alex. This is Alex. Alex has an ops job, like system administrator, in a pretty low-tech industry, textile. And Alex has a problem. And Alex's problem should be familiar to all of you. This is the problem of silos. The developers throw this grenade as a code on them, and then obviously Alex cannot do their job. Well, a lot of smart people, including Evgeny Zhitomirsky, who is one of the co-founders on GitLab, advocate for a solution, and this solution is DevOps. DevOps is breaking silos in the software engineering workspace. This looks exactly like what Alex needs. Side benefit, look at the salaries. This is a system administrator salary. All you need to do in order to get more money, switch to DevOps. 50% salary increase, sounds good. Alex changes jobs, goes into another company in the same industry, Strong Fabric, and becomes a DevOps engineer. How Alex's day look like? Well, he's DevOps engineering things. He's installing Jenkins on the desktop under their desk. They implement DevOps in their own DevOps environment. Well, as you can think, nothing really changed. They still have the same problem because, well, they still lack the collaboration between Dev and DevOps. Now when they have DevOps department, but nothing changed. And he's going to coin a new term, and it will be DevDevops, collaboration between Dev and DevOps. How about that? And obviously should get him some money. Well, jokes aside, DevOps is not a DevOps department. DevOps is a set of practices that combine software development and operations. Obviously, Alex reads the books, the Phoenix Project, the DevOps Handbook, the Accelerate, and Alex understands that DevOps is actually still keeping their deep specialization, but also having common goals, common culture, and this is where they should strive. And Alex wants to measure their department or their organization with the rest of the market, and the best way to do it is using the State of DevOps report. What Alex discovers is that their company is really a low performer. They release software very seldomly, and the quality of the releases are not very good. Time to restore service is horrible. Basically, they don't do a good job. While the industry moves forward. You can see how in 1 year between 2019 and 18 and 2019, the number of elite performers grew 3 times. Why? What are the reasons why companies adopt DevOps? Well, it's pretty straightforward, right? So we have users. The users want features. When do the users want features? They want them yesterday. Obviously, company that releases faster have an edge in this regard. The same with security. For security, it's extremely important to find the problem, to fix the problem, and then to deploy the fix to production as fast as possible. And obviously, now when you look at this growth, it actually makes sense. It is an evolutionary pressure. It makes sense that they actually need it. So everybody understands it, the organization understands that they need to release faster, but the organization doesn't really know how. They have some strange ideas like, let's hire more DevOps engineers. We know that it doesn't work. Let's fire all the testers, because if the testers are the bottleneck, we can just get rid of the bottleneck and boom. Or Alex gets themselves to this meeting, suggests to implement real DevOps, and you know how this meme is ending. Why? Why does it happen? One of the reasons is that Alex doesn't have authority. The decisions are decided up there, but Alex is somewhere here. So does it mean that it's impossible to influence without authority? No, actually, Alex finds a way, and this is what my talk is about. Hello, my name is Baruch Sadogursky. I'm the Chief Sticker Officer at JFrog. That's my first Devnexus, which are not in Atlanta, and it makes me very sad because I could give you some awesome JFrog stickers and basically be with you, hang out with you. Well, hopefully next year. For now, you can follow me on Twitter at jbaruch, and we can complain about how we don't go to conferences over there, I guess. This is my California disclaimer. I am very much a fan of the Erin's Meyer Culture Map book. It's a must for whoever works in multicultural environment, which includes all of you. Read it. This is from there. You can see how emotionally expressive and confrontational people are from Russia and Israel. I managed to be from both, so expect some insensitivities during this talk and also very Soviet memes. It's all coming. I have prepared a special page for you, jfrog.com/show notes. You go there, you will find the slides, the video, all the links, the place to comment, to rate, and some very lucrative raffle that I prepared specially for you, whoever watched this talk. So go there and you have all the material. The link to this page is on the bottom of every slide, so if you forget, that's fine. Let's get back to our story. So we understand that to order to influence to something, first of all, we need to be expert. And for that, we need to learn. I promised you Soviet memes, here they are. Obviously, there are tons of very good books about DevOps. And I already mentioned some of them, like the Phoenix Project and the Devops Handbook and the Accelerate book, a couple of more, Site Reliability Engineering, the engineering perspective of implementing DevOps, the Unicorn Project, that's the alternative reality of the Phoenix Project, kind of more centered about the developer story as opposite to operation story. The Liquid Software book, that's a book that I have the honor to co-author with two of JFrog co-founders, Yoav Landman and Fred Simon. That's about continuous updates, also topic related to DevOps, obviously. And I want to specially mention War, Peace, and IT by Mark Schwartz. This is a book which describes why DevOps is important for managers and for executives. And if you want to influence managers and executives, you need to get the narrative that is tailored for that persona. And this book does a wonderful job in that. Highly recommended. So we wrote tons of book, read tons of books. There are more stuff. There is the DevOps Speakeasy podcast that we in JFrog do, and it's also very, very relevant. DevOps-ish, the mailing list, the podcast, videos from different DevOps conferences, and two technology radars. The original from ThoughtWorks and the new one from CNCF that actually talk about which technologies, which techniques, which tools, which platforms are now used by either recommended by ThoughtWorks consultants or used by CNCF and clients. This is also tons of very important and good material to learn. And now let's say you did all that. You read everything, you listened to everything, and you are now ready to go and influence. And you storm into your boss's office and you tell them how great DevOps is, and their reaction is, nope, not gonna do that. There are a lot of reasons for that reaction, and not all of it is, just unreasonable. Sometimes people are just busy and they don't have any capacity to listen to you, or they might think they're gonna do it and really promise you and really plan to do it, but then get distracted. Some people never even plan to do anything like that, and they will just be all talk but no work. Basically, in any of those reasons, the activation energy that is required to push organization change along is very, very hard. So I guess what I want to tell you is don't give up. Although you will hear no a lot, it's still not a reason to give up. And some tips, how can you move along without hearing no so much is don't try to boil the ocean. Do it one step at a time. And we are going to talk about a framework for achieving that. And this framework is called Influence Without Authority by Alan Cohen and David Bradford. There is a book, there is a methodology, there is a 6-step model. The Cohen-Bradford Influence Without Authority model, 6 steps. We're going to go one by one of all of them. The first step here is assume all are potential allies. It sounds trivial, but it's really not. A lot of the time, you will dismiss a lot of potential collaborators as you assume they won't be willing to collaborate with you. You'll say, well, yeah, I know this guy, he's not going to do it. Oh, yeah, I know her, she has other stuff on her mind. And then you dismiss people before actually asking if they're interested in participating. Don't do that. Assume all are potential allies. And when you look through all the potential allies, you need to select those who will give you the most benefit. And that will be forward-looking teams, the teams in your organization that look for doing stuff better. And this obviously helps. It can be highly visible projects, those that if they implement DevOps and win, it will give a lot of boost to your cause. There are self-promoting cheaters and douchebags, so you need to be beware of those. And how do you determine the ones that you really want to from the ones that you really don't want to? Well, there is nothing that replaces talking to people, and this is how you find allies. It's harder now online, but still definitely possible. So once you found who you want to speak with and who you want to convince, now you need to qualify why are you even doing that? What are your goals and priorities? Obviously, your goal is to implement DevOps. You're doing it because you try to fix a problem. You want to break the silos for between the developers and ops in order to fix the problem of software delivery. And this is an evolutionary pressure, and doing DevOps right is the right thing to do. And doing the right thing is a good cause. You also want to work in a nice environment. You want to work in a modern company that does the things right. You don't need tons of approvals to do anything. You want automated pipelines. All those are valid reasons. And also, let's be very frank, resume-driven development, or in this case, resume-driven organizational change is also fair and game and nothing wrong about it. Once you understand why are you doing that, let's ask the question, the people that you are going to convince what they want, what is their what is their world, what are their priorities. So first of all, obviously they are interested in their career as well. And again, nothing wrong with that. If you can play to that, it's a good way to influence the people. Also, you need to remember what motivates people. And when we're talking about motivating what we call the white collar, especially the IT people, here is where Daniel Pink Drive is one of the most important books that can explain what motivates us, the developers, the engineers. And there are 3 factors, according to Daniel Pink, that work much better than the normal carrot and stick, salaries, etc. And they are autonomy, mastery, and purpose. We're going to use those 3 factors when we are going to decide what do we need to say to whom in a second. And obviously, once we talk about people, and we need to remember that people are irrational. The good news are that they are predictably irrational, and you can pretty much know what the reaction would be in different scenarios as long as you have the right knowledge of how humans tick. And there are tons of books that talk about that I can recommend. Predictably Irrational by Diane Ariely, Sway by the Bravermans, and much more. What you need to remember is why people would want to do this change. And obviously, one of the reasons, if not main, is what they leave behind, what their legacy will be. And then you need to think about, okay, what other people care about? What other people have in their lives that might stand between you and your goal of convincing other people? First of all, it can be, for example, metrics, how other people are measured. If the change that you are driving is not compatible with how other people are measured, they will obviously be very reluctant in helping you. They might be afraid of the reaction of the boss. Will the boss be angry at them for helping you? Maybe they're just not interested in what you suggest. Maybe organizational change is not their cup of tea. Another question is, how it will affect their career? Will it help them promote, or maybe you're planning to eliminate their position? How their reaction of the colleagues will be. Again, maybe colleagues will feel threatened, and then obviously you need to be very aware of that. What is their load? Do they have any capacity to help you? And also, what is their personality and character? There are people who are just not very helping by nature. Obviously, you need to remember that people have life outside of work, and stuff there might affect their willingness to help you. When we persuade people, it's very important and powerful to persuade them with numbers. And numbers in DevOps are the metrics from the DevOps State of DevOps report that I already mentioned. And here are the metrics: lead time, deployment frequency, change fail, and time to restore service. When you assess your organization and you find those numbers, this is where you have a very strong case. You can say, you know what? Our numbers suck now, but let's change it and make them good, because this is where our legacy is. This is what we will leave behind. If we manage to transform an organization, this is a patch that will be on our shoulder, and we will take it with us in our resume, going back to what motivates both sides. When can you look for those numbers in order to assess your organization? There are number of sources. First of all, maybe your company publishes public OKRs. In that case, or KPIs. In that case, you just go there and you look there. You might harvest information from backlogs and see, for example, the release frequency, how fast people release new versions. There are also always internal presentations, kickoffs, status meetings, etc. That's a very good source for digging as well. And obviously, nothing stands between you and just asking people those questions: how fast they release, what is their change rate, how long it takes to bring the services back, etc., etc. So then you gather the information and you can influence with this information by thinking about the world of other person. And what I will do now is a simple exercise to show you how to go about thinking about the world of other person. Obviously, it's highly personal. It's different from person to person. But let me show you the way of thinking about how go ahead and diagnosing. So what I did here is a matrix of autonomy, mastery, purpose, what motivates people, and fears of change to DevOps. And then I apply those 4 parameters to different personas that we need to get on board in order to promote DevOps. So let's start with a couple of examples. For example, autonomy of developers. What motivates developers in autonomy? Obviously, developers will be more than happy to be able to see their application all the way to production. Instead of throwing the software over the silo and then wait for the ops people to put it in production, if developers can do it by themselves, this is great, and this is how you can convince them. Um, Fears of developers, what they do fear, it's also quite often that the fear of developers in adopting DevOps is that, hey, the system administrators are trying to offload their work on us. It's their work to deploy to production, and instead they claim that we need to do it because DevOps. Obviously, we can work with this fear. I did an entire talk about that, DevOps for developers or maybe against them, when we start and talk about exactly this problem. Now let's talk about ops. What ops care about was their mastery. Well, mastery is the new shiny tools of the DevOps world. Stuff like service reliability engineering, infrastructure as code, Kubernetes, platform engineering, serverless. All those are the shiny toys that you can promise to the ops people to start playing with once you adopt real DevOps. Let's take testers now. What is their purpose? Well, for testers, the only purpose they have is to ensure production quality. And to ensure production quality, we need to look at production. And that means that the testers now need to be involved in the entire DevOps circle all the way to production in order to help and guarantee the quality back there. Let's take information security. What their fears? Well, their fears are obviously being blamed for security issues. And their fears of DevOps is, hey, we're going to let developers now deploy directly to production, and this is going to be a disaster because no one will have any control. Well, and the answers are, that's not correct. There are controls. There are guardrails. They are just baked into the pipeline, and you don't need to verify everything manually. Who else? Product. What is their mastery? Well, product want to get the right features right. How can they do it? The only way is to experiment, to put something in production and see if the customers and users love it or hate it, use it or don't use it. The more frequently we can deploy those experiments that the product managers want to do in production, the better job a product manager can do, and this is awesome. Now, this is where you tell me, hey, Baruch, but you just claim that I need to be an expert in everything, in delivery, in product, in quality, in architecture, and security. How one person can even do that? And my answer is, you're right. One person cannot do it. It's a unicorn farting rainbows. That doesn't happen. Instead, we need to strive to be T-shaped people. T-shaped people are people that have a deep specialization, whoever they are, and then a wide interest in world of other person. And this is exactly what DevOps is about. And you can say, but I don't want to waste my time learning stuff that is not really my specialty. Well, here is a counter case. David Epstein wrote a great book called Range about how going broad instead of going deep can actually improve your career. And if that was too much books, how about a TED Talk by David Epstein? This is him about exactly the same content. Just a reminder, you can find everything that I mentioned, all the links to the books and the TED Talk and everything in jeffrog.com/show notes on a special page dedicated to this talk. Well, now you know what other people want and what's the world of other people. Let's talk about what other people really want. How can you have a currency that then you can trade with that can be useful by other people? And there are many currencies, and obviously I'm not talking about money, but they can be inspiration related stuff that will inspire other teams. It will be task related, something that will help them move forward. Position related, something that will help their career. Relationship related, it's just someone who wants to do a favor to you. And person related, you just might want to do good by other people and they will do good by you. Basically, we want kind of collaboration that we have between sharks and the remora fish when it's a win-win regardless of who you deal with and who you try to influence. And I will give you one example. For example, you can organize a hackathon. Why organizing a hackathon is such a great idea? Because hackathon is a multifaceted tool. It serves actually as a currency of every type. It's inspiration because hey, you just built something using DevOps techniques of empowered teams of T-shaped people in 2 days, and it's useful. And yes, we need to scale it to the entire company. It is very inspirational. It's task related. The outcomes of the hackathon can actually help people solve their problems. It might be position related. Some people might get promoted because of a successful hackathon. And obviously, it's a relationship and person related because those tools can be useful for someone personally and they will be grateful and owe you a favor. So look for those things that you can do for other people that then you can call on a favor and get them on board when you need their help. Before we actually do that, we need to deal with relationships. And one of the examples is where we started with, when just people go and say no and don't listen to you. And there is no practical solutions here, or there is no a general advice that I can hear you or general solution. You just need to learn how to be likable and how to behave so you will never eat alone. So people will be fond of you and will want to do favors. Again, bunch of books, JFrog show notes. This is where you can find all of them. Once you are sure that people just don't dislike you, you can go ahead and influence through give and take. Quid pro quo, that's the give and take. It has some negative connotations, especially in politics, but it's generally a normal way to do business with other people. You do them something, they give you something in return. It's an exchange, and it doesn't have to be monetary. The examples that we are talking about are, for example, interest alignment. They will do it just because implementing DevOps is good for them as well. Barter. They will help your cause if you will help their cause in something else. Owe a favor, you can tell them, hey, help me now, I will help you later, but obviously it's better to call in a favor. Hey, remember, I helped you in the hackathon, now help me with convincing my boss, your boss, for DevOps. So this is kind of summarizes the Bradford Cohen influence without authority model, and I would leave you with that, but what I know for sure is that if only by hearing this talk, you are going to storm into the office of your boss and try to convince them for DevOps, you will still get the same result. Why? Because there are barriers that stand between you and successful implementation of the model. Let's talk about them. Some of them are pretty obvious because they are external. For example, power differentiator. If you are going to now kick the door of the CEO and rush into their office and claim that they need to implement DevOps throughout their organization immediately, that probably will not work. You need to work work your way up through the organizational chart, so the power differentiator won't be too large. Might be different goals. It might be truly that the head of QA afraid that you will automate everything in quality assurance and they will be out of job. That's obviously a problem. Incompatible measurements. Again, maybe someone measured by the time they invest in manual verification. Obviously, they will be very objected to automation because it's not compatible. Just pure rivalry. Well, you wrote some books about how to be likable. It doesn't make you likable overnight. People can just be hostile. The bigger problem are the internal barriers because you might be not aware of them. First of all, lack of experience with the model. It's a nice model, it's clear, it's understandable, but you need to practice before you do the big thing. A blinding attitude. We spoke about it when we said it's unnatural for us to assume that everybody are allies. That's exactly that. You might say, you know what, I'm not even going to talk with them because they won't help me. And that's a blinding attitude that can stop you from being influential. Fear of failing, that's another one. You can decide, I'm not even going to start because there are no chance I'm going to succeed. And the last is the fear of reaction. What happens if I fail? For what happens if I fail, there is a strategy that is called BATNA, best alternative to negotiated agreement. And the worst thing you can go is just, you didn't think about it. You got yourself in trouble without a plan of what to do if that fails. The usual one is, I will try to do a rollback. I pretend nothing happened. This will limit your influence because you will stop yourself thinking, okay, if I'm doing that now, I won't be able to roll back. And this, obviously, when you stop yourself from being more influential. You might accept the fact that if you go too far, you won't be able to go back. But in order for doing comfortably, obviously, the best way to go is to have a plan B, which is already worked out. You also need to remember that that's a big campaign, and you might have some wins and you might have some losses, but the fact that you lost something doesn't mean that you are going to lose the entire campaign. Before we end, I would like to speak a little bit about kind of common objections to the idea of DevOps. The first one we already covered. Developers shout, the on-call is not my job, I'm not going to be there. And the answer is, hey, just watch my talk. DevOps or developers and maybe against them. I answer all those concerns there. Another one might be, well, whatever we do works. We are Fortune 500 company, been there forever, and it's just fine for us. We don't need to change anything. And for that, there are tons of examples how not moving forward, meaning falling behind. And Equifax CEO, that's only one example of people who thought that whatever they do is fine. They don't need to release faster because they're a monopoly and then they'll care about the customers, just to discover that they have to. Otherwise, it doesn't end well, as you know. Another one is, yes, those fancy methodologies, we don't have time for them and we're not going to implement them. And that's obviously very bad idea, because in order to get more time, you need to do a better job, and for that you need to invest some time, and that's fine. Another objection is, well, silos are fine, they promote specialization. If we have the developers not wasting the time in learning Kubernetes but just writing code, that's a great idea. Well, yes and no, mostly no. And it's no because the modern software delivery is like a factory. And in this factory, if we don't optimize the bottleneck, means that we don't optimize at all. This is Eliyahu Gotrad, the author of The Goal, which is another book, last one for today that I'm going to recommend, and Eliyahu talking about process optimizations. If I have extremely gifted and fine developers, but my operations lack, the fact that the developers write code doesn't help if it's not getting released. The Goal is available as a business graphic novel. If you want to break from the books, you can go ahead and consume it as a graphic novel for a change. Another concept another objection that comes a lot is, well, we can't release faster. We need to check for security. We need to check for quality. We need to check for whatever regulation we are required by the regulators in the government. So we actually need to go and check every release after it is released, and there is no way for us to escape it. Well, there is. And the answer is, you can apply this concern to the pipeline instead to each and every release. You can ensure your pipeline can ensure the quality. Your pipeline can ensure the security. Your pipeline can ensure the needed regulations. And I can guarantee you for a fact that the regulators are completely fine with a compliant pipeline, because they know that compliant pipeline always produce compliant releases, even if they don't check each and every one of them. It gives them more confidence in what you are doing is good, no less. So basically, you need to automate everything. And I like this picture, but I also think it's not quite right. The people who are sending away from the pipeline by the robot should actually be very happy, not very sad, because they are not getting fired, they are not going home. Instead, they're going to do much more valuable and interesting job. So with that, let's get back to our Alex, who actually managed to do that and obviously got promoted to be the Chief Information Officer in the Strong Fabric Co. And now, when Devops is in place, Alex can go and employ his influencing technique in other places. So he can still now come as a Chief Information Officer and influence other companies as well. This is great. I wish you the exact same thing. And just to remind you what we spoke about, the Cohen-Bradford influence without authority model. 6 simple steps, not so simple to implement. You need to practice. You need to make sure you know what you're doing. And then you will still have objections that you need to work with. And some resources in working with the objections are more books, Getting to Yes, Getting Past No, and they are all in exactly the same place. You go to JFrog's show notes, and this is where you find them. This is Devnexus. Use the hashtag when you mention this talk on Twitter, and mention me as well. My Twitter handle is @jbaruch. More stuff on show notes are the slides, the videos, and the raffle that you shouldn't forget. Go ahead, participate in now. It has a very, very nice prizes. With that, have a great rest of the conference, and I really hope to see you in person soon enough. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.